see my own screen here. We can see by the volume that all of a sudden, right, as soon as the heavy volume stepped in, this thing just went absolutely ballistic. This is a stock that I said when it IPO'd that this stock is probably going to be over 100. They really make the mortgage process easy. They really make the refinance process easy. I used them for my refinance and wished that I had used them for my initial mortgage. That's how good the experience was. And if you've ever gotten a mortgage before, you know that experience traditionally is hell on earth. So it was nice that they're actually able to make this much easier to go through the entire process. Now, all that being said, I'm not sure any of that played into what's going on here today. This is definitely one. There was real back and forth trading after this IPO, right? So here's the IPO. We had kind of a nice little run up. We came back down. We had a nice little run, looked like it was going to take off, and then we just sold and flagged, right? We just traded sideways for 5 months or so before today. Now, today, this thing really kind of busted above one of the more recent highs. That was actually, I believe it gapped above that. Let's take a look here. This is why we actually mark those levels. I, of course, clicked on it and didn't have the tool selected. Let me go ahead and do that here. Bang, right? So 25.50 thereabouts. Let's zoom in and see what happened today. All right. So we pretty much gapped above this line. We never really even looked back at it. This morning, I guess, right when the pre-market opened, we dipped and touched it, but we took off from there. And then really you started to see the crazy action happen around lunchtime, right? 12:45, this really piled in. So here's the thing about short squeezes. I can't tell you for certain. I don't have the data. I actually rely on our news desk when I'm not sure what's going on. I want to know if there's any other data that they have. So they're saying it's amid a potential short squeeze. The company last week reported strong Q4 results, including 162% revenue growth and 350% net income growth. Those both seem like really important catalysts. Those seem like really, really important numbers. And so I'm not surprised to see the stock doing well. This entire action here is what I can't explain, right? A great song, by the way, by The Who, but I digress. As soon as this volume steps in, this stock really starts to make a crazy move. And this is great for day traders. This is one where I'm sure that this happened earlier. I was quite busy today, so I didn't actually have my squawk on all day. But this is one of those stocks where when we squawk this one and you see this kind of volume that's carried on through the rest of the day, there is just multiple opportunities to trade here. So Joseph, you said I've been in RKT thanks to Jason. So yeah, I'm winning today. Awesome. Today is your ship has come in today, if you will. Did anyone else trade this? Did anyone else trade this today? And Brian, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the participants menu and making sure that people in the waiting room are being let in. I'm trying to do it, but it's hard when I'm looking at the chat and also the screen.
I don't see anybody waiting.
Yeah, I just let them all in. So just keep that open. And if you notice other people are joining, go ahead and let them in. Welcome everybody. Hiron, good to see you again. Bob, good to see you again as well. I'm sure there are more people that I'm not saying hi to. Please forgive me. Brad, good to see you again. Sebastian, good as always. So welcome everybody. Tim, Eric, Susan. All right, a lot of people coming back. Much appreciated. So did anyone else trade RKT today? Did you day trade this? Are you holding this? This is definitely something that I wanted to position myself in for a longer term investment, maybe a year, 2 year, 3 year time horizon. But I have no exposure and I'm certainly not going to chase after today's action. So did anyone trade this? Joseph, you are holding it. Okay. Tim, you said yes, hold and day trade. So can you break down then the trade that you did today? Are you still holding your entire investment position? B, if you took a short-term trade that you knew was going to be a short-term trade, tell me about it. What were you looking for? What were you in and out at? What indicators did you use? What did you use to actually take that trade? Pardon me here. Today is a new phone day, so I'm trying to I'm trying to keep myself in line here and not play with my new phone and go to set it up, because that's what I really want to do. In any case, Tim, okay, got pre-market at 27.5-ish, sold at 32.42, and held what I was holding previously. Okay, Tim, so it looks like then that you're trading around your core position, a position that you hope to hold for a longer period of time for the sake of a trade or even an investment. I do this all the time. Perhaps I do this the most with Apple. That is a core position that I've had for a number of years. That I trade options around my actual core position. So good job doing that. That's one of my favorite ways to actually trade. I really think that helps you develop a feel for each individual stock, and then also give yourself an opportunity to capture some of the volatility when the stock's moving up and down when you're actually trading around your investment. So awesome idea doing that. Let's take a look. You bought at 27.50, so you got a pretty good price here at the open. Looks like it really, after it made its first move up in the pre-market, you were able to get it. What caused you to exit, right? So it looks like your 27.50 held when we got this first kind of corrective move after the open. It looks like it held through for the most part throughout the rest of the day, and then it really started to take off here. You said your exit was at 32.42, so it looks like 32 here. This was just, let me see if there's anything on the daily chart that sticks out here. Yeah, so you looked like you were right about at the top. You might have been considering this a blow-off candle, so you just wanted to make sure that you got out in here. And then 42 was the other position. That's just 10 points higher. I mean, at that point, that's a new all-time high. I think you're just probably booking gains at that point just to make sure you don't give them back. Looks like we top ticked 42.16 before trading back down. I'm wondering, did you get out on this first spike, or did you get out on the 42 reclaim that we had shortly after?
Got out on the second spike.
Okay. And so let me ask you then, when it hit 42 and this kind of pulls back in and you see it grinding back up, does that play into your calculus at all? Are you thinking, well, I just saw 42. As soon as it hit it, it pulled back. That might be resistance. If it hits 42 again, I'm going to liquidate. How did you end up playing that?
Yeah, I figured, the first one at 32, I got out because it was flattening there after the open. So that flattening there, I got out there for half of it out that I bought in this morning. And then
Gotcha.
When I just let it ride, because I was already up, I didn't care. It's kind of free money at that point. So, and I saw it hit 42. That looked to me like a profit-taking sell-off on the first 42. And so and I also was watching the shorts like crazy today, where the shorts are at for my broker. So I saw the shorts have been dried up all day. There were some this morning, but there's been none really all day long. So I just waited for it to go back up. I go, another $10 profit, I'll take 10. So usually stocks run in 10s, it seems like, for me.
Your broker is reporting you short interest?
Well, internal short interest, what's available to borrow from them.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So you were, okay. So sometimes that's referred to as locates, right? So you're actually looking for shares to show. So you were judging your decision based off of how many shares were available for you to short. Is that correct?
Yeah, this morning there was, I don't know, 44K or 45K within my broker. And shortly after that first pop, there was zero pretty much all day long. It has been. Every now and then a couple K will pop up, it'll disappear as soon as they pop up.
Okay,
so awesome. I'm going short squeeze coming.
So that's really interesting color. That's really awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Using your broker to determine how many shares are actually available to short and using that as a data point. That's actually not something that I've done, but it looks like that worked out for you today. So congratulations on your trade today. That's a great one. I'm assuming you're still holding your investment position.
Yep.
Your core.
And I was only watching the shorts on that today because there's like a 40% short interest in it anyway. So
right. And so I think that's where we're actually getting this from, right? We have a high short interest in this name. As soon as volume starts to pour in, the price starts to really kind of go off. So I think that's where you're getting this potential short squeeze. I want to be very, very careful and mention that this probably is not going to behave like GameStop. So just because you're seeing the term short squeeze doesn't mean that this stock is going to be 170 tomorrow and then 420.69 or whatever several days later. So I mean, with that stock was just absolutely crazy. I don't think we're going to get a repeat performance of that, but awesome today. I do, again, just from a more like higher level, I do actually really like this stock. I like what they've done with the mortgage process. I would use them again if I went to go get another mortgage, because they won me over with their business. So they also gave me a really
how did they? Oh, I was gonna say, how did they win you over? What was it about it that you liked?
It was just how everything was easy. So I had done my first mortgage with a different company. I'm not going to give their name. And then I did my refinance with Rocket Mortgage. And I mean, my refinance, like, it couldn't have been easier. There were people on the phone that would call me, answer any questions that I had. I never really had to wait for anything. They helped me find documents. They turned things around easy. Their website was easy to use. All of the forms that you had to fill out, sign, and initial were easy. They didn't take time. They had someone actually meet me at my place. This was in the middle of coronavirus. All right. They had someone meet me at my place outside. I basically had an iPad that I had to check some certain. I mean, just the entire process was so easy and so non-stressful that when I compare that to my initial process of actually taking out the mortgage, there's just no way. The memory is crystallized for me. There's just no way I would go back to that initial company. I would at minimum give Rocket Mortgage another chance to give me the same level of service that they gave me the first time. And then on top of that, the interest rate was awesome. I know a lot of that they can't really control because it's based off of the prime rate and all that. So
I don't want to monopolize more on Rocket. I came in a couple minutes late. I just happen to have been holding it for like a month and a half. Does anyone want to hear my ideas on it?
Yeah, definitely.
So
today's a Rocket day. Let's hear them.
Okay, so this is where you kind of get lucky after waiting a month and a half, right? But saw the CEO CNBC a month and a half ago. These guys have been in it for a long time. I haven't been a believer necessarily in Rocket, but after listening to them, I'm like, shit, these guys have been doing this for 30 years, right?
Yep.
Between the both of them, 70 years. So the fact that they, control whatever 95% of the company still, that says a lot. So I bought it at 25. It dropped immediately in the 30 minutes after down to 20, and it's been there for a month and a half.
So that one more time. You bought it at what?
I bought it at 25 a month and a half ago. I do what I rarely do, which is to buy it while the CEO's on air talking, right?
Gotcha.
The golden rule is not to do that. So, but I did, right? I'm like, whatever, I'll just put it away, right?
Yep.
So I put it away. It dropped immediately, though. Like, it dropped immediately within the 30 minutes, like $5.
Yep.
And it has stayed there for a month and a half, right? I'm like, whatever, I'm holding this thing, right? I think it's going to do something because of the platform that they built, right? Mm-hmm. Not because of mortgages, but because of the platform. It's a fintech company now. So here we are a month and a half, and I'm like, why is there such large short interest on this? Over the last month and a half, I've been thinking this. Why the short interest? I must be missing something, so I didn't buy more. So they announced earnings. Did anyone hear what their earnings were?
Their earnings were great, right? So here
they were beyond great. They did $1 billion earnings last year. They did $9 billion with a B this year. Earnings, not revenue, earnings. $9 billion, right? So I'm like, what am I missing? So I still didn't buy more because I thought I must be missing something with the large short interest. So obviously, it started moving up with people finally figuring out that, okay, it's a decent platform, blah, blah, blah. And so, of course, today was the squeeze on it. I actually, when it pulled back from what I caught when I came on was, it went up to 41, 42, something like that. Sounds like someone got in for a day trade and sold out at that point, which is awesome.
Yep.
So, take your gains. You're not going to lose money doing that, right? So, but when it pulled back to 36, I just bought some leaps, some, January 22s, some 35s, right? For $12.50. Combined $12.50 for just 10 contracts, so another 1,000 shares. So I actually kind of doubled up at that point, just for a different way to do it, right? and I am playing it for to see if we get that one. I also don't think it's going to be a game stop. I don't think we're ever going to see that exact action again. But I do think it potentially could have one more day of what it did today in it, just because of follow-on short squeeze. So I'm kind of playing my options for that, and I'll probably hang on to my initial 1,000 shares for kind of a longer term play.
Okay, so I like again, I like a lot of what you're doing there. You've got multiple ways of exposure to this name, and then you have different time horizons for those different vehicles, right? So you're going to hold your shares for a little bit longer, and you're going to try to play some of this volatility using the options. I think that's really smart. I think that that's really prudent. And I think that if you compare this to some of the other short squeezes that we've seen, even if Rocket doesn't behave like GameStop and AMC did, the fact is that this squeeze process could last multiple sessions. So if you have options like that, so maybe scaling out of those options, depending on how the stock actually trades, is going to give you an opportunity there. So I do think, this is a huge move today. So I think that a large part of the move is actually in. Now, I said that about GameStop when it was at 100 and it went to 400.
Right.
So,
well, you know what? I think that there might be another move, and just really quick, just to tell you why. The Rocket is doing a several $billion buyback program.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
5 billion?
No,
Yeah,
1
$1
billion.
billion.
Yeah,
1 billion. Okay, and we don't know when they actually are going to start, buying back those shares. So if they time it right, this could be a really good opportunity.
Yeah, and there's been other talk about that too. They actually, years ago, they talked about Apple doing the same thing in terms of timing a buyback. There was a lot of negative sentiment about one of the iPhone cycles, yada, yada, yada. Here's what I'll say about that. In my experience, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't think so. In my experience, companies don't necessarily try to time buybacks in order to initiate short squeezes. Companies are going to be way more concerned with the long term. They don't, when we see, as traders, when we see a candle like this, like we're seeing today, we're like, oh, hell yeah, I want a piece of that action. That's what traders do. Companies are trying to run a successful company over the long term. So something like the price of the stock, especially if it's moving around because of shorts, a short position or a bunch of short interest, I really doubt that the company is actually trying to time that. Now, with that being said, those two things could align and could piggyback off of one another. So your point is well taken. If there is a huge short interest and everything seems to be going well there, you could see kind of a violent move like we saw today.
So just one last thing.
Yep.
That if you're interested, if anyone's interested, several people did some good DD on Wall Street Bets.
Yep.
And I've been on Reddit way before all this current stuff. So there's some good stuff, lots of whatever it is, usually it's funny.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
But there is some good DD on this squeeze. Super interesting in that along with the $1 billion buyback was the special dividend of $1.11. And what I didn't think of or didn't realize that somebody else pointed out on their DD on Wall Street Bets was, if you are short the shares, you are then responsible to pay the $1.11 special dividend. So the shorts by March the 9th is the ex-div date. So if you're short the shares March 9th, you then have to pay the $1.11.
Okay. I've not heard of a dividend working like that, but I could be totally off there. So that's very interesting.
So that's what makes it interesting. That's kind of why I doubled up. I read that and I'm like, I'll buy some options on this. Your point's well taken on the buyback, though. I don't, if that was Sebastian, is that helps to set a floor where I think the floor is probably going to be set at that. I think definitely at 20 since they declared the buyback there. So your floor is kind of at 20 on it, probably 25, maybe 30. So that's why, to me, it's a good long-term hold if you believe in the platform that they've built.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. I do actually believe in the company and the platform. Then the other thing about those buybacks is, it's not like they release the Kraken, right? It's not like they're like, oh, here's $1 billion, go get me as many shares as possible. They'll stagger those buys, and a lot of the times they'll actually do it on days where the stock is weak, so they
on the pullbacks.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But all of these factors play in, right? And these things can add up. This can be quite good for a potential play. Just going back here, Brad said I FOMO'd in RKT at 32. So I'm guessing here that you bought in at 32 because you saw it moving and it was a pretty aggressive move. And then you sold at 37. So you captured $5 of profit on that trade intraday. Pretty good. I saw it on Wall Street Bets this morning and I wanted to ride the hype. Don't know enough to hold it long term. Okay, so we just had several theses talked about in terms of more longer term holds. Maybe you can take something away from that. However, great job executing that day trade today. 5 points on your day trade. That's really awesome. That's something to be proud of. So congratulations on that, Brad. Congratulations to everyone that played RKT today. This was definitely a huge mover and made for quite an interesting afternoon, right? We didn't have this crazy action in the morning. We actually didn't have this till after lunch. So that's really cool. And Brad also throwing out thanks to the BZ Pro chat. I'm really glad that you did that, Brad, because I'm a huge proponent of our community and our chat. That's one of the reasons I like doing these happy hours so much. The chat is obviously a little bit different, but the same type of thing. So I'm really glad that our community was able to help you out. That's exactly what it's there for. Thank you very much for the success story. Brian, you were throwing me some tickers from YouTube. So someone had mentioned Airbnb offering. Right now, we talked about Airbnb yesterday, right? We were doing some charting on this. We said we're beneath this trend. We definitely wanted to reach above this trend. We were unable to do that today. You're talking about an offerings. Let's click on the news here. Looks like we had a $2 billion proposed convertible senior notes offering. So if you want to investigate more about this, I would look into what a senior note offering is. Andy Gold, are you out there by chance?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you give us a very brief primer on a senior notes offering?
Depends whether is it a convert note or is it just a regular note?
Yeah, this is a convertible senior notes offering, $2 billion proposed convertible senior notes offering.
At what price does it say?
Let's see. No, it just says that the $2 billion, it doesn't actually give a price in here. I'm trying to skim the PR.
It's due 2026.
Okay. So it's due 2026.
What's the convertible in equity at what price point? That's I haven't gone through it, but
yeah, no, neither have I. I'm trying to do it here. Either repurchased, redeemed, or converted note holder will have right to it doesn't actually give a price.
Well, it'll probably be at some sort of discount to the market, whenever they price it.
Yep.
It'll be like a 10 to 15% discount to the market the day they price it. So, it's like anything. It depends what the market does. People always ask me, why does the stock go up? Why does the stock go down? More buyers than sellers. It's as simple as that. It's like you guys are talking about Rocket, and Rocket had good fundamental earnings behind it. So
yep.
And I agree that dollar dividend definitely played a factor in that, because you're right. If you're short a stock and it pays a dividend, you're on the hook for that dividend. So Dave is right. Dave Anderson is right about that. So
yep. Dave, that's can you explain that a little bit more? Is that only a special dividend, or is that any dividend, or
no, it's like anything. You owe the dividend. If you're short a stock that pays a dividend, you're owing it.
And so if you hold a stock short, how does that actually take place in your broker? Because that's not something that I have any experience with.
They'll hit you up for the dividend, whatever it is. You'll be paying. It'll come out of your account automatically.
Okay, so that would be quite a surprise to wake up to.
If I would have known that, I would have probably been on that trade. I was a bit, I wasn't following Rocket per se, but
yeah,
I think that was part of the catalyst, to be honest with you. So
yeah, no, I think that you're absolutely right, and I think that might be why we're actually getting to. That's why we're squeezing. So let's assume that that's the case. Let's carry this forward real quick. Let's assume that that's the case. Can we expect to see this type of squeeze mechanic continue until that ex-div date? Or do you think that this is going to kind of lose
that's probably happened. It's probably somewhat in the sauce at this point, but
okay, so it's priced in then at this point.
I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, anytime a stock has this kind of move, exclusive of, and especially the way the market's trading right now, you're probably going to see a little bit of give back on this stock at some point, just because, look at the liquidity in the market. It's just completely dried up in certain areas. I mean, look at the SPAC market. It's awful right now. Every SPAC went back to almost basically to its IPO price. So, which makes all the sense in the world to me. Too many SPACs.
Yeah, no, that, and you know what? Credit to you. You've actually been saying that for a few weeks now.
Yeah, my opinion is the market would get tough right around. Typically in a banner year like 2020 was, the market gets really tough between February 15th to the end of March, because people kind of like, and they're, people have to pay taxes, and you got to figure out what your liability is. And I don't even think half the people understand what watch sale rules are. And I'm assuming most people here aren't mark-to-market traders like myself, but people owe money for 2020. I'm assuming most people had a great year 2020. So, by April 15th, you're supposed to make a payment, even if you file for an extension, you still got to pay the tax.
Yep.
So that's going to create a lot of people go, well, I owe 25,000 in taxes. Well, I better sell some of my winners, blah, 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 and then you get this new stimulus money that comes in. So maybe that'll offset some of it. But it's not going to be devastating. It just, the markets, as you noticed today, yesterday was the first day of the month. So you had money inflows, like I've been saying. So you had all that money flowing into tech stocks the first day of every month. February 1st, March 1st, if you look, it followed to a T. And now it's resumed back to this scenario where we're getting closer to tax time. So this is historically a tough period of the market. And I don't expect anything different, I don't expect it to fall off a cliff, but I definitely expect some tough, Did you watch gold today? Gold had a nice bounce. Be curious to see if that has any legs going forward. All the gold stocks. If it's just a one-day wonder, if it's just is there, now is that a safety trade, because gold's been miserable lately.
And so not to put you on the spot, but kind of to put you on the spot, where do you think we go here from? Where do you think we go next at the end of March? Or do you not have enough data to make that call?
It's hard to say. I think we kind of consolidate. The VIX is at 24. I mean, I don't see the VIX going to 40, but, I think the VIX is going to be, I always watch the VIX for direction of the market. So the VIX is 24. It could go to 26 to 28. I don't think it's going to go back to 18 or 19 or 20. So, it could consolidate. I think the CCIV deal really hurt the SPAC market. So
yeah,
a lot of retail people are realizing how much they can get screwed at these deals. So, it's a liquidity. There wasn't a lot of bids today other than stuff like Rocket. Was very few actual, guys bidding for stock. Media companies were strong. But generally speaking, there wasn't a lot of bids today. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I did pretty much every stock that I had was bidless except for the battery play TPGY that I watched. And,
right.
and then to be quite honest with you, that actually moved up today on low volume. And that was after a monster move yesterday. So, I mean, that could be something completely unrelated to what we're talking about. But some of the other stocks, the volume was quite low.
Volume was quite low. The bids disappear pretty fast.
Yep.
Bitcoin looks really extended to me. All the Bitcoin plays like Mara, they look dangerous. I don't really follow Bitcoin per se, but those type of names look really susceptible to, trying to buying the bottoms and those don't bounce and they get halved again. Those are really dangerous stocks.
Yeah, we've talked about that a number of times on the show. I'm not a huge fan of the Bitcoin related stocks. I would rather just hold the coins.
As far away as those as you can. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of our chat community uses those as day trading vehicles, and they do quite well with them. It's just never been my cup of tea. And
well, there's going to be a day when they do that, and they're going to buy them, and they're going to just drop $5, $7, $8, $10, and next page be down $5, $7, $6, $8. It's a terrible discipline. So historically, the key in trading is discipline. So you got to be disciplined. And when something starts catching on a falling knife, it's not my game. So
yeah, nope, not mine either. I generally wait for a reversal after the knife is falling. I guess to carry that analogy on, I wait for that knife to bounce off of the pavement before I try to catch it, instead of trying to catch it on the way down. So real quickly, let me just close out the conversation here on Airbnb. It looks like there was a convertible senior note offering. We don't seem to have a price listed for it. We probably have to do some more digging in order to figure that out. But again, just kind of carrying my thought from yesterday, I want to wait until there's a clear uptrend here. I'm not sure that I necessarily see it. It's nice that we're making higher lows here in these recent days, but again, we just kind of broke down. We were just having a discussion about things looking toppy just in general. So I wouldn't be rushing to take a new long position here. I'd actually wait to see how the market digests that news of the offering. Good question though, and I'm glad that you guys brought that up. Looks like we have Fubo earnings today. Andy, did you ever trade Fubo? I feel like we talked about this, didn't we?
Well, one of my biggest positions continues to be Chicken Soup, which is in the same space.
Right.
SSE. So Fubo's just buying revenue. So their revenue looks good, and it's just it's a big Zach Morris stock. It's a big momentum name. I think it's super expensive for what it is. Relative to some of the other AVODs that I like. It doesn't mean I would definitely not be short the stock. But they're really basically buying revenue. So, it's like in the old days in the internet stocks, they used to buy revenue. They go, okay, we can do 500 million in revenue, but we're buying it for 600 million. So, be curious and, how much money they continue to lose by buying revenue. It's like their EBITDA is still a loss of, 43.5 million. I mean, to me, that doesn't excite me. I don't like the business model, but it doesn't mean it doesn't go higher. And I definitely wouldn't be short it because I love the AVOD space. And I think, you got Laura Martin behind it. You have a lot of the big traditional media guys behind it. But to me, they're just buying revenue. I mean, I'd rather own something,
Yeah. So just to recap, they missed on EPS, beat on revenue, and then guided higher.
Yeah, they're just buying revenue. It's like any company can do that. I mean, you just buy, you buy revenue. You buy media libraries. You just keep buying content. So,
and then the question will be, how well do they actually execute throughout the rest of the year? Then,
what's the market cap in this thing? $6-7 billion. It's like. It's crazy. I think it is. It's like it's got a crazy market. I mean, I've been in Chicken Soup from sevens. It's got a 300 million market cap, and it's EBITDA positive, and it's got probably more subscribers than these guys do. More followers. So and more content. But it's not. It's just a different business model. If you're going to buy content, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now, maybe one day it works. What is it? 5 billion cap?
4.599 billion.
Yeah, losing $43 million a quarter in EBITDA. What is that worth? To me, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I'm a valuation guy. So it doesn't mean it can't be 100. To me, it shouldn't be 43. So it could be 143.
Gotcha.
So I'm from a valuation standpoint, it doesn't matter. I mean,
using Fubo as an example, what would you need? What would Andy actually need to change your thesis on Fubo? Do you need to see better earnings? Do you need to see multiple earnings reports after another?
I need to see them at least start turning the corner as far as when they're going to be EBITDA positive. Like when I was buying Chicken Soup in the sevens. They're EBITDA positive and growing, and they're not, their model is, I like their business model way better. I like the CEO way better, what he's trying to do. So that's why I'm in it. That's why I was in it in the 7s and 8s, and I think the stock still can go to 100, but I'm not telling people to buy it at 20, what is it, 27? I bought it at 7, but I think it'd be 100 relative to this stock. If you compare them up, I'd much rather own an AVOD that's cash flowing, that's EBITDA positive.
Sure.
So
sure. Brian is also mentioning that sports betting is now live on Fubo. It's not as big as the Barstool Sportsbook, though. Does that change the calculus at all?
Everybody can do, Chicken Soup's can do sports. Any AVODs could do sports betting. You're already in front of eyeballs. You're already on every TV device. So what's the barriers to entry for sports betting? There is none. So it's just, you got to get in front of eyeballs. So,
but do you think that they could? But do you think that they could like do sports betting a little bit, more efficiently because
because they have the content, right? Yeah, they already have.
Yeah, it's right there.
It's right there, so I don't have a problem with that part of it. But any of the AVODs could do the same thing. They can all pay up for football games. They can all pay up for the same thing. So I think the whole sports betting scenario is it's eventually going to be a commodity industry. It's a land grab right now. So obviously DraftKings and it's a land grab. Everybody's going to do it. Anyone and everyone. Amazon will do it at some point.
So this is a little old school, but it's been on a tear. I'm not in it. I've been waiting, hoping for a little pullback, but keeps going, and it went again today, which is Viacom.
Yeah.
So their Paramount launch apparently is going pretty well. If the younger guys aren't aware of Paramount, I mean, they have a shitload of content.
Yeah.
And when I say shitload, I mean they own the content. They're Paramount Studios, they're Nickelodeon.
It was the single best buy when the market collapsed. It was my biggest position for when it was in the 14-15s. It was my single biggest position.
So did you dump it?
I dumped it way too early, much like Penn Group.
And so I'm looking at getting in at these levels because it could potentially, if you have seen, which you probably have, see what Disney's done, and the new CEO was on today. I didn't watch him, but he was saying that they've been surprised at the uptake by the older audience. Where typically with Disney, the kids drive it, right?
Right.
Park your kid in front of it, and they watch the same thing 100 times. But I think that Viacom's got the potential. They also, have been doing NFL for decades now. They may drop it, depends on how expensive that gets. But anyway, from a value but over the top play, if anyone's interested, that's a potential look.
No, it was the best buy, and it went down to 11, and I started.
What's the ticker?
Well, VIAC. Congrats on that. I should have, but shoulda, coulda, woulda.
That was the buy when to me that was the buy of all buys when the market collapsed, because if that would have gone out to nothing, then it would have been caveman and stones. So there's certain stocks like it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered whether you own any. In March, some of these stocks where they were, if they would have gone to zero, it wouldn't have. Owning the banks would have gone to zero. So it didn't matter. So you were like picking these. Look at Penn Group. That was I owned that at almost $4.75.
There was too much to buy and not enough money.
Yeah, at that point in that March time frame, and I was just like licking my chops. That was a once in a lifetime opportunity.
I know.
Well, okay. If we get another sell-off, I'm really hoping that we can elevate these happy hour sessions to the next levels, because you guys are smiling and talking about, setups of a lifetime and licking your chops and Best Buys and all of that. And that's great. Let the next time that this sells off, let's have those conversations here. Because that having your shopping list ready is, I mean, how many times have you heard that? Coming up with a quality shopping list of stocks that you actually want to own and hold for the long term. That's where the community can really, really be important. Let's do that, because I'm sure we're going to see another sell-off. Maybe not just like this, but another sell-off is coming.
For sure you will. And it'll be started, for sure, 100%. It's just a question of like what themes you want to buy, what can turn around the quickest, who has the best balance sheet, who's got, who needs to raise money, who doesn't. Everybody's raised money now. So you're probably unlikely to see as big of a sell-off as you saw in March. But you're going to see, I've been through many markets since, the late 80s. So you're going to see some of this other stuff happen.
Here's gonna be the sell-off. Here's when to get into Bitcoin. As soon as the first government announces that they are definitively going to regulate Bitcoin, that's when you can buy Bitcoin 2 days later, because it will go.
So
like
wait for the puke. Wait for the puke.
As soon as one government announces, that's just then the start of it to tank.
It's hard for them to be able to, I mean, it's built to be impossible to do that.
Right. That's why you still are going to buy it. But as soon as they announce, then it's going to drop, because everybody who doesn't understand that, the way the blockchain works, will, panic and dump.
Oh, yeah.
But then that's when you go buy Bitcoin when it goes back to 20.
All right, guys, you heard that here first. I appreciate it, David. We're giving out potential trading ideas here on Happy Hour. That is absolutely awesome.
So one thing, I definitely, I'm a new guy here. So, but I would, if you guys are interested, I'd like to do a session if you guys are interested in talking about the EV charging space, just because you did mention TBGY. So I've got my short list on that, but ChargePoint tanked yesterday. I don't know why. I wasn't in it, and I'm not sure if that was that the SBE SPAC that was ChargePoint. But anyway, I have a
Andy would probably know better than I would.
Yeah, probably. See the problem with
CHPT. I believe this was
So there, there's like 3 to 5 of them, right? And
Blink,
and that's maybe one.
Sniper's one too, isn't it? SNPR. Okay.
So this is the thing. If you guys are interested in doing a session just on these, where you look at them, I mean, they're not. To me, they're not the day trading type stuff, but it's the infrastructure. It's the picks and shovels. And somebody was just on today talking about Volvo. I mean, every car company is announcing that they're going to be 50 to 100% electric by 30 to 35, right? And that sounds like forever, but I think that 1990 was just yesterday.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And actually, if you've been part of the Benzinga ecosystem, you've heard Jason talk all the time about the thing behind the thing. And that's exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about some of these charging plays. Notice that when all the charging plays got beaten down yesterday, there was one that did not. And it was relative strength. It was TPGY.
Yeah.
And I had actually said before, this thing looks incredibly oversold. I said on Twitter that the stock has no business being under $30. I actually took calls on Friday, which I'm doing quite well on today, but I took April calls. I'm hoping that this actually runs a little bit more. I mean, if we take a look at some of the recent chart here, just technically when we were oversold, I'm thinking that we're going to test this 34 level again in the near term. That's just what I see to my eye. So, David, we've actually, EVs have been a hot theme recently. Andy is a big time theme trader. He talks about it all the time as one of his big criteria for actually entering a stock. We've been discussing EVs in some capacity every day on the show for feels like months now. And I don't anticipate that going away. As far as EVs go, just in general, the sector in general, meaning all of the associated charging plays and the car company plays, we're in the first inning of this, in my opinion. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because I think this is going to go for years
So I
years
haven't,
there's
I
gonna be
haven't,
this.
I haven't traded any of the autos, especially the Chinese autos, for what we were talking about yesterday. So I haven't been in any of these. I look at infrastructure stuff, right? So this is where it doesn't matter which cars sell; they all need to go
Yep.
to a charging station.
That's
So,
right.
which is why I threw out MP yesterday. If you guys want to take a look at MP at all, but MP is the only rare earth miner in the U.S. And I don't like the chart, which is why I threw it out. They pop. If you see the heads on those, they pop and they come back. So those are all red candles where it closes lower than where it opened, right? For 3 days in a row there. So this is where I threw it out yesterday to maybe take a look at it, because I've been waiting for a pullback on it, and it just keeps going up, right? And so I was just wondering your or anybody's thoughts on this chart pattern here.
So interested. The first thing that I'm going to say is that I believe that Sandman had talked about this several times, even months back. I actually think that I sent him, I'd have to go through my messages, but I'm pretty sure that I sent him a message about some news article that came out of this a few months back. And he said the same thing that you did. It's the only rare earth play here in America, right?
Yeah. And so the key is that it's the minerals that you need for the magnet. So right now they mine it here, they send it to China to make the magnets. And then part of the US infrastructure play, if it ever happens, if anything ever happens, is that it's a strategic asset to make the magnets here in the US so they could get federal funding to then, build the plant to make the magnets here. So then they would be more vertically integrated and value add.
All right. So you're looking for, so first of all, I like that whole thing. I really like angles when you get military contracts. I think that's great. I think that's going to do wonders for your stock price as well. From just looking at this technically, I mean, obviously the first thing that I would want to do is I'd want to take a look at a Fibonacci retracement to get an idea of what some of these levels are going to be. It looks like the golden ratio, when we pulled back earlier after December, when we pulled back earlier, we did in fact pull back to that golden ratio. So I would expect then, if you're looking to actually load this, these pullbacks don't look violent. They look like they happen kind of quickly, and they don't look very steep. So, I mean, I would think an add here around 43 is probably prudent. I doubt we'll actually get down to 37. So maybe 38, 39. But just from looking at this chart, I would agree with you, David. I try to also take entries on. I wait for things to pull back instead of chasing green candles. I think that's definitely a smart move. If I were stalking this for an entry, and you guys are kind of making the case for me to do that, I would be looking for low 40s here as my potential.
I will just say that has an $8.5 billion valuation. What are the revenues of this company?
I know, exactly. It's why,
so, from a standpoint of,
Right.
a guy that ran money for a long time.
right.
Right.
That's why I don't like it here.
That's a really hard thing to sell to my investor base. I'm not
Exactly.
saying it doesn't work, but that's a really, really hard valuation for me to wrap my hands around.
So are you, Andy, would you be waiting for a specific price, or would you be waiting for a specific valuation to change your thought on that?
I'd really have to see what the production, ramifications are, what the revenue basis could be on that. And, you can throw out, okay, 2025 numbers are going to be X, Y, Z, but we all know when people are doing business plans, they never hit those numbers. So I just think it's dangerous for those type of stocks. For me, they're dangerous. It's a bad discipline. It's a bad way to try to make money. The better way for me over the years is to be on a theme and be on it early. EV is great, but it's late. It's probably a 9-inning game. I agree. And you may be only in the first inning, but it could come back, and wait for it maybe to come back to, some sort of reasonable levels. You're better off. I mean, we're going to get an construction infrastructure bill. That's probably an easier theme to make money on over the summer. It may not happen right now, but
Joseph also had mentioned read Morgan Stanley's coverage. They gave it a price target of 57, which we're not far off from at the current level right here. Tim mentioned that it makes more sense on the weekly chart. Looking at this weekly chart, this looks quite extended as well. So yeah, I mean, this is why we have these discussions, right? This is what makes a market. This is why we're talking about
It
both
shouldn't be an
sides.
$8.5 billion, so it could be a $17 billion valuation. So it doesn't matter. When stuff becomes overpriced, in my opinion, it can be whatever it wants to be. Any stock can be whatever. More buyers than sellers, it's going to go up. Because the theme is good. So that plays into the whole scenario of being in the right theme at the right time. So 100% how you make
do you think we're going to see any drop off in market participants over the next year or two? Do you think that this was kind of like a high point that we recently saw with the whole coronavirus being locked in the house and all the GameStop stuff? Do you think that market participants are actually going to leave and thereby lower volumes?
No, I don't necessarily think that. I think it's just it'll broaden out in certain areas. If you notice, the steel stocks are acting better, the fertilizer companies are acting better. There's been strength underneath the surface. Look at stuff like Mosaic and fertilizer guys. Look at there's definitely strength in areas that we don't talk about a lot that that have done really well under the surface. Maybe not. They're not up 500% a day, but they steadily grind higher because they do have good numbers, and you can justify the valuations in them. It's like you can look at them and say, oh well, now the stock's gone from 15 to 30, but it's still only got an 8 PE ratio. It's like, and that's how I played my game. So it doesn't always work, but it's worked a lot over the years.
And I think that's important, right? Stick with what works.
I don't want the risk. I don't want the risk of getting just completely destroyed by not having fundamentals underneath what I own, So I'm a fundamental guy. So I like balance sheets. I like, debt-free companies, and I like earnings, and I like cash flow positive companies. Because
I think that I think the younger traders, I see them here as I scroll through, but I think the younger traders are here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
They're smarter. They're smarter than anybody thinks.
I agree with all of that.
And they definitely provide liquidity, and they provide volatility. And all of that makes for more interesting trading, that's for sure.
I would agree with all of those points. Hector actually said more people are going back to work. He actually said two things in separate messages, and it was interesting because when I read them, I understood them a little bit differently. His first comment was, for one, more people are going back to work. And my first thought was that was an argument that there's going to be less market participants, but he followed it up with there's going to be more money and more stuff to invest in. And I think that that's really the key point. That's the part that I agree with. I think that even in the situation of people that were forced at home that are now going back to work, like you were saying, David, the newer trader is here to stay. Whether or not they have a day job is not going to determine whether or not they participate in the market. It's the fact that they've kind of got a taste of this and they see what's possible. Even when you go back, if you can't spend all that time in front of the screen, you can't watch every tick, you're still going to be a market participant. And all of those things that you just mentioned are in play now. More volatility, more liquidity, all of those things.
But I'll say one thing, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happened between 1998, 99, 2000, there was a ton of retail people in the market. And they all got wiped out in the internet craze when all those internet companies came public that were, there was companies called Life Minders would remind you about your birthday. It was an IPO. So the second a lot of guys start losing tremendous amounts of their trading capital, that will change the parameters. Now we're getting more money, more stimulus money coming in. So we're going to reload these guys with more money. So as long as they keep reloading people with money and stimulus, I agree the market participants will be there. When the guys like Citadel and Vert and these guys start really coming into the market and start really taking all the day traders' money from them, things could change pretty dramatically. So I don't want to be, I don't want people to understand that can't happen, because we saw the exact same thing between 98, 99, and 2000, where there was a ton of retail traders came in the marketplace with basically the beginning of the internet days. So
So you and I are probably the same age. I was right in the middle of that. Actually, I was working in tech, and this is back then. They said this is different. I wouldn't say that the market's different, but the trader is different. The technology is different. I think that, and this is one of those things that they say about our age, which is okay, boomer. Like I do everything I can to learn from the young guys, so I'm not an okay boomer. But you're an okay boomer if you don't realize what's going on. Yeah. The young guys, you can call them X, Y's, and Z's, whatever. It doesn't matter because a lot of them are making money too. So they're not all getting their money taken away from them in this case, right?
No, I agree. They're smart. They're way smarter than in 98, 99, and 2000. It was like shooting fish in a barrel for me. I mean, it was
until the end.
Yeah, well, I did well, but we were just crushing it because the people that were trading against us had no knowledge whatsoever about the market. It was like one of those periods in time where it almost felt like you were taking advantage of people because they were buying stuff that was just nuts.
Well, so the amount of real-time information makes this different. So this is where we were just starting to build the internet. Now it's.
I agree with some of that, but there'll be a period of time where people lose a lot of money.
Oh, I mean, they're losing a lot of money right now. Look, if you were in GameStop, they were trying to warn you on CNBC. Well, the guys on CNBC also didn't make a ton of money from 40 to 400. So a lot of people made money from 40 to 400, and some got out. But so just to say, I totally agree with you. There's going to be tons of people, and there already have been tons of people who have lost a lot of money. There also have been tons of people, and they've made a lot more money than I have because I'm a boomer. So I've got,
of course. I agree. Same. I agree. I've been more conservative than.
So my wife, I said, like, I'll tell my wife today. I told her 5 days ago when they announced the rocket earnings. I'm like, I don't, you wonder like what's going on in the market when you see it go up and down, and she looks at it when it mostly goes down. And I'm like, you can't watch it. I'm taking care of it. And so I gave her the example of Rocket where I bought it and 30 minutes later it lost 20%, right? I said, but that's why I don't tell you what I'm doing, because then you won't want me to do anything, right?
Right.
So as you get older, you get a little more risk adverse. The young guys are like, whatever. Like right now, I can't go to a ball game. I'm not going to spend $100 going to the football game to buy a ticket because I can't. So I'll put that in the market. I'll put it in. So I am heavy into DraftKings and Penn because those are the ones that, my tenants at one of my rentals, those guys are constantly betting, right? It's just another form of betting.
Yeah, if you ever go to a barber shop and you listen to the guys getting their haircut in the barber shop, they're always talking about those names. So the young guy, the millennial guys in there. Oh, what do you think of? They always ask me questions about stuff like that.
Right. Anyway, that's one of those themes. So sorry.
Well, you know what? Coming from a guy who's young, with me, I've learned that a lot of it has to do with what price you're getting a lot of these things at. Because I got Fubo at 11, and I'm gonna hold it regardless. And I like what they said about the betting. And so, I think there's a lot of factors that you have to go in. Then the last thing I always say is, in every trade, even if you're selling, somebody's buying. And if you're buying, somebody's selling. So somebody has to win and somebody has to lose.
A lot of that can depend on your time horizon too, right? So if I buy something at 40 and it goes down to 30, it looks like I lost. But if it squeezes and goes to 100 and I'm still in, who actually lost? So I think that there's a big, I think that's one of the things that Andy was hinting at. And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm certainly not trying to put words in your mouth. But if you're saying, back in 99, 2000, it was easy because the people that were piling into some of these stocks didn't understand what the market was going to do or how the market was going to move around. You ended up taking advantage of that, right? You did understand how that was going to work. And then you were able to use that knowledge as your edge in trading.
I made $8 million in one day trading. So
what was that?
I made $8 million in a day trading. So
that is Hopefully at some point I have one of those days. That would be
No,
really,
but
really
true
incredible.
wealth creation, it comes from finding the right name and doing the research. And like I pumped on the message boards for months about BASI, BASI.
Yep.
Every day I pumped on that. And that look at BASI's chart. And just I mean, look at that. I mean, I pumped that at 4 or 5, like between 4 and 5 forever. I knew the story, and I'm out now. But it was basing an insider buying, good balance sheet, bright space, great theme, and good new management guys. I wouldn't be now. Now they're going to raise money, but so there was a company that I did a ton of fundamental research on. I pumped this name so much in your chat room for. I was like, I hope anybody bought it, but that was one of my names that I really liked.
Yeah, I know. I remember you. That's why I'm so glad that everyone comes here and participates on these calls, because not everyone is going to follow. Not everyone is going to take it as a recommendation, but the ones that do, you're going to remember this. And I mean,
that's true. So I bought 500,000 shares in the $4 to $5 range, and I sold it between 13 to 16. So that's true wealth creation, and it wasn't an overnight sensation. I bought it,
Yep.
I kept accumulating it slowly, but I knew the story. I talked to the management. I mean, obviously a lot of you guys can't call the managements, but I do Zoom calls with managements if they'll speak with me. A lot of them won't, but some of them do.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that do you also listen to conference calls
I do, and I go through SEC filings, and I go through insider buying, and I do, I'm a fundamental guy, but I like Benzinga because there's a lot of guys that pull up ideas that I would never look at because the valuation parameters don't hit my criteria, but the theme is good.
Yep.
And so, that's why I like the chat. I like to get ideas from different people because I'm so valuation oriented that I miss stuff because I'm like, well, it trades at too many times, 5 times sales. I can't buy that. It's like,
so that's actually an important point too. It almost seems like you're looking for a difference of opinion because you understand that you're going to find something in there.
I think the purpose of a chat room in an organization like this is to get everybody, more sets of eyeballs looking at things.
Yes.
And then we all come up with a good idea and we go, yeah, that makes sense. I get that.
Yep. I'm with you. I'm with you on that 100%. That's phenomenal. Okay. So this has been great. We're already a couple of minutes over. This has been an excellent discussion. It's exactly the type of stuff that I want to do on this happy hour. So I know there are a couple of tickers that we didn't take a look at the chart and we didn't take a look at some of like the technical stuff, but I think we got more education here on what's happened in the past, fundamentals and things of that nature. So I really want to thank everyone for showing up. David and Andy, I really want to thank both of you for your banter back and forth here. Stuff like that is incredibly helpful. And especially when it's not something that's in my comfort zone, I end up taking more from that. So I hope that there were others here that also found this helpful. I look forward to being able to do that. You want the Benzinga Discord to get to that level. Joe, let's work on that. I think that there are some things that we can do. We want to keep doing these happy hours, but maybe we can kind of promote that Discord and then have some of this idea generation running 24/7. That's actually a really good idea.
I'm working on Rohan's first trade Discord tonight, so I'll definitely help you out with that.
Okay, great. That
if I could add just one thing. I mean, if we're going to call this a happy hour, I think that everyone should at least have a beer or a cocktail.
Yes. So David, I'm really glad that you brought that up. That's actually something that one of our engineers brought up the other day. He goes, happy hour, more people should be drinking. So let me send out the official invite. Please, if you want to come here, you are welcome to bring an adult beverage to this particular happy hour. I will say that one of the reasons that I often don't drink here is because shortly after this happy hour, I go out and get myself dinner, and I absolutely refuse to get behind the wheel of a car after I've had any amount of alcohol. So don't let that stop you from having some. And in some cases, when I know I don't need to go out, I will join you. I will have some of that scotch. I know Joseph's got some peated scotch ready to go back there. So anyway, yes, David, that's a really good point. Everyone is welcome to bring a beverage here. We want this to be fun. We want this to be helpful. As you just heard Andy say, the purpose of having community and chat is not so people can argue, not so people can find gotchas, not so people can say, I was right, I did this, I did that. That's not, that none of those things are good. Those are all toxic behaviors. The good parts about a chat is idea exchange, sharing information. And when you have people that specialize in different areas sharing their information, that's when you're going to get the best quality content. That is exactly the goal of what we're trying to do with this show and with the chat room. So really, I want to thank all of you for your participation today. Really, really appreciate it. Please join us tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. We're going to be doing this again. We'll be doing something very, very similar, and we'll go through whatever you guys have. So thanks very much. Again, Andy, I still need to send you an email. We still need to do a webinar to teach people how to become fundamental investors. I think that would really, really help. And that would put some tools in the toolbox that can be used for wealth creation long-term.
Yep.
So let's do that. Thanks everyone again for joining. Really appreciate it. Brian, if you wouldn't mind actually ending the stream here, that'd be much appreciated. And I will see all of you tomorrow.